What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your career? Or with your current business that you're involved in right now, or organization?
Biggest challenges is getting business out of that apathy mode into ownership of their community, of their own professional development, trying to help themselves, trying to create services and things that they can take advantage of, that if they will come and if they will network and meet other people, that they will certainly give them new customer contacts and the ability to do well in their business. It gets frustrating when business would rather sit in their chair or in their store and not get out and be part of the community. So trying to provide that service and quality and make the chamber relevant to the business community. In great times, it's sure a blessing because everybody's in a great mood, they're making profits and they're doing well and they want to help. But particularly the last 10 years or so, it's been very, very difficult because they've had to concentrate on their business. So that has made our job a whole lot more difficult, is trying to get them to understand that we're in there for them to help them during these tough economic times and to get them to participate in things in the community.
I would say on multiple levels, challenges start off with not falling into what you are hearing consensus say. In other words, you've got to really honestly follow your passions, follow your drive, because it is very easy to get lost in the sauce and listen to what the others are, what those around you are saying. The down economy, the unavailability of jobs, or trying to earn finances. You've got to fall back on your God-given talents in every situation. I didn't know this, but I had dyslexia as well, and it's not something that goes away. You manage it. I wasn't supposed to graduate high school, let alone make it through the first semester in college. But discipline and passion is what got me through it. In my career, I was handed a Rolodex box or a box of index cards. They said, move to Hickory and start calling on doctors and attorneys, and that was it. And I stumped my first 2 years. I was horrible, bottom 10% of the company. And I was fortunate enough to stay passionate and find some mentors who saw something in me that I didn't know I had in me, and they helped propel my career. So for me, I would honestly say, no matter what you're facing, no matter what the challenge is, we do such a good job trying to overcome them or even avoid them. But sometimes you just got to go through them.
I was just sitting here thinking about the number of people that didn't come into this room today. There are a lot of people out here that are not taking action. They're walking down the hall and they're going, alas, poor me. The reality is that you all did make the effort. The difference between, I think, a successful entrepreneur and one that is not is the level of passion that they have. And wouldn't you rather have a passion for whatever you're doing than just making the motions I'd rather be a passionate ditch digger than sort of just laissez-faire, blasé sort of CEO. I think life itself will be a whole lot better if you do it that way, much less the rest of the world that you're dealing with.
Well, I want to talk about the fire that burned my factory down in 2001. And I want to talk about the flood that happened about 2 years later. But then I could talk about the $250,000 theft that one of our employees was stealing 20 dozen socks a day and selling them. But I'd rather talk about a challenge of the first trade show, because you folks are new. And my first trade show I went to my father had given me a leather suitcase that was probably from 1940, and it was gorgeous. And that was my briefcase. And I had cut 2 mannequin feet and drilled them a hole and bolted them to this suitcase. And as I started to walk into the trade show, I think it was in Las Vegas that year, I sat down on the steps and I couldn't do it. I couldn't make myself look like an idiot walking down the halls of these cycling legends and companies and carry 2 feet sticking out of a suitcase with 2 pair of socks on. And so my wife, as Scott will tell you, she's type A, she's straight black and white, and I'm kind of fluctuating like a wild roller coaster. And I sat on the steps. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I can't do it." So I took one of the feet off and got up and went in with just 1 foot sticking out. And it was the funniest thing, because I'd tell people my mother-in-law's in the suitcase. And it stopped the show, and people talked to me, and I almost didn't do it. Like Scott just said, I almost didn't do it. Some people didn't come into this room. Many people don't want to start a new business or start a challenge or think of the complicated process. And I woke up this morning thinking, gosh, I got to speak today. I'm a musician as well. I write songs and I play at Salt Lake City at the Outdoor Retailer. I play my original songs in front of 500 people. And every time before it, I think to myself, wow, I don't really want to do this. It's a challenge. And then when I've done it, I got to do another one. I got to do more. And I think that entrepreneurship is taking the risk. It is taking the risk to be booed off the stage or laughed at for walking through the halls with 1 foot sticking out of a suitcase. But those kind of things, I think, prepare you for the challenges that you'll face. The fire, come on. Fire's not going to be hard. You know, we burned to the ground, lost everything we had. But that suitcase, man, it was much harder. So, the challenges, my father so eloquently said one day, and I'm sure they were not his words, but he said, life is a roller coaster. Put your arms up and enjoy the ups and the downs. And on a Friday when it's up, go home and celebrate, because Monday it's going to be down. So, there you go. That's what my challenges are.
And I think, 2 words you just heard, fear and passion. And I think that's the biggest challenge that any of us face as we go forward every day. I think we have to constantly stay focused on our passion, because there's so many things that are going to try to knock you off stride, whether it's a fire, a flood, or 2 legs sticking out of a suitcase. They're going to try to get you, and they're going to try to pull you down, and you've got to stay focused on whatever that passion is, because you're going to fail. Life is not something where we can just breeze through, and you've heard all the sayings that go along with that. We're going to fail. We get up, and we prepare ourselves for the next challenge. And so I think preparation reduces the fear, but preparation also allows you to pursue your passion relentlessly and to take the intentional steps that are necessary for you to reach your goals.
That's great. I have to ask the question about how you did get through the fire, the flood, and the theft, because those 3 things are amazing.
How did I get through them?
Yes. What did you do, and how did you
Well,
deal with it? Not just physically, but emotionally.
I'd have to say sheer ignorance is probably the first answer. I didn't realize how hard it would be to rebuild after a fire. But I found that the people that we had working at Defeat cared just as much as I did, and they didn't want to lose their jobs, and they wanted to help rebuild the company. So really, I had a very strong group of people. Of course, we went from 50 employees to 25 employees that year, and we all just worked so hard. We had some socks that made it through the fire that were smoke damaged, and smoke damage is worse than the water damage or the fire part, because you want to try and fix the smoke damage. So we found the only thing that would fix smoke in a sock was ozone. So we left the socks on the roof of a building that we rented. And we sold those smalls and extra larges. Our sales reps, really dug in and sold that product. It took us 9 months to get back up after the fire, so we lost market share. Our brand was so good that it survived that. The people that we have working at Defeat were so good, we survived it. I was just ignorant enough to keep going, and I survived it along with them. Many people would have filed bankruptcy, because you have bills to pay, and we never missed a pay period. We never missed a payment anywhere. And so the flood was very small compared to the fire. The fire was millions of dollars worth of damage. The flood was $20,000 worth of damage, and the theft was $250,000 worth of street retail value. But I did find some new customers after that theft. The truck drivers that she sold the socks to up I-95 are now Big Feet fans, but they only want to pay $1 a pair, which is what she was getting. They couldn't understand why they lasted so long. But I want to say one thing about being prepared. I read a book called Please Kill Me, which a friend of mine gave me, and it's about the punk rock movement in the 1980s, early 1970s. And I had this book for 7 years. It's very difficult for me to read, but when I do read, I read passionately. And in the book, the Ramones go to England, and they're walking down a back alley, and a gang in leather, now keep in mind, that's the Ramones, okay? A gang in leather stops them. And the Ramones were scared for their lives. The Ramones were from New York City. They're in London, and they're scared for their lives. And one of the guys holds out his hands and says, "Hello." And it was the Clash. And the Clash were afraid to play their music out in public. And so they asked the Ramones, "When should we play out?" And the Ramones' answer was, "You're ready now. You're always going to be as good as you are. Just get out there and do it." And that's so true in business. Once you've got your background for your occupation that you're going for, get out and do it. So.
Anybody want to ask a question? Mary?
Oh, I was just curious, Mr. Cooper, the employees that you had working for you, you said you recovered from the fire. Were you surprised by their passion for what they did for you? Did that take you and your execs off guard?
Execs. Well, I don't know if we have any execs. I guess my wife and I are execs, but
Your suits.
yeah. Well, did it take us by surprise? That was 2001 October. We had just come back from a trade show out in Salt Lake City. Las Vegas. It was the first trade show after 9/11. So you got to remember what the country was going through. 9/11, we still have our flag at our office from 9/11, from when we flew the flag that day. We still have it at the office, of course. So these people that were working at Defeat at that point in time, they were just as proud as I was to have an American-made product. And they wanted to keep the business there, and they wanted a job. And so, was I surprised? I was thankful, but I was grateful, but I wasn't surprised. I think people are inherently proud of what they do. So